Welcome back to another episode of Adventures in Business. This is your co-host Amy Zander with ZD Media, and I'm here with Lisa Fisher with Lisa Fisher and Associates. How you doing, Lisa?
Doing fantastic, Amy. I'm excited about just the lineup of people that we have signed up to be on our podcast and really looking to engage with them, learn about them. And today's guest, when we're ready, I'm anxious to have her back. So, what's going on in your world, Amy?
Yeah, busy. I have my neighbor is doing he's having some like landscaping work or something going on across the street. So if you hear the noises in the background, that's what that is. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but I can hear it out my window. So sorry about that, listeners, if you hear that, but 'tis the season, right, for spring cleaning and landscaping and all that good stuff. So yeah, I'm just excited. It's Podcast Wednesday. I've got another kickball game tonight. That's exciting. So yeah, just glad to be here and glad to talk to our friend here who's our second guest who's come back on the show. So that's exciting. So why don't you tell us who we've got today?
Today we have Jenni that is joining us from the Naughty Mystic, and she was on the show before, and I ran into her again networking, and she's got her hands in a lot of pots today. But Jenni talks about all things that are usually those topics people don't want to share and discuss, right? So bringing them out to the open and sharing. She's also a podcaster. Jenni has her own podcast. So Jenni, welcome. How are you today?
I am doing great. I'm doing great. It's great. I mean, it's May, it's Michigan. You expect it to be sunny and ready for spring. And who knows? We could have snow later, even though
Yep, I was got to be ready for anything.
Yeah, they're ready.
One of my fondest memories is doing my final mow around a snowman because it had built enough or snowed enough that my son built a snowman in the yard, but I needed to get that last mow. And so like literally within 2 days before the snowman melted, I had to mow around, and welcome to Michigan,
Yep.
right?
Absolutely.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so Jenni was the winner of my first annual marketing summit. She won the big prize from ZD Media, which was a whole brand redo. And so we worked a lot on her podcast, which is the Naughty Mystic podcast.
Yes.
And yeah, so Jenni, you already had a fabulous logo and a fabulous name. So we went through the brand discovery session and did that and talked about a lot of the content on your site and things like that. And you've been doing a fabulous job of marketing your podcast. And I know that you are back at it now after a little bit of a hiatus. So talk to us about your show.
Well, yeah, last year I think we had the marketing, and then I did the first episode here like immediately right after that weekend. And then you and I, Amy, got to bond like in over the summer, and I had done a couple of episodes, and then life started happening, so I had to do a unexpected hiatus for several months, not because I wasn't interested, just I'm also a massage therapist, and I had to do extra classes and continue education to renew my licenses in other states, not just in Michigan. So I had to catch up with that too. So, but I did take a lot of your information, and I've been tweaking things here and there, slow but steady. And I do have a second season now. I have a couple of episodes out there, and it's been fun. I'm still learning. It's totally, as we all know, like I said in the first one, technology out of the comfort zone, which I believe we all should be when we're doing things, because that's the only way we can grow. So I'm excited to say that even though I've only done I think it's like 6 or 7 episodes for this season so far, I have 2 different interviews out there, not just me talking. But one is with a pelvic floor therapist who is a physical therapist but specializes in pelvic floor. So that has made people uncomfortable because we're talking about vaginas, and because the specialist I have is more about women, but we do talk a little bit about men, because anyone who is human has a pelvic floor. So it doesn't matter. We all have to deal with that. And a lot of people don't even know we have to work with health on that. Whether you've had children, not had children, whether you're a male or a female, like if it hurts to have sex, as if you recognize yourself as female, and you have a vagina, anyone that has a vagina, if you have, hard times having sex, that can be part of the pelvic floor experience. We don't talk about how things need to get tightened up, or they are too tight internally, and we need some help with that. And it's in different realms. That's just not the only thing. Another topic that is discussed, I had another interview with, was one of the local aura readers that we have. Her name is Dawn Balmer, and she's known around the Lansing area. She has been other places too, but we talk about colors and aura readings and abilities and people's gifts, and not just aura readings, but like one of the things that I have been finding is that people have gifts or abilities, however you want to word it, and they are uncomfortable with it because either it's not discussed, or they don't know it's an ability, or they think that their ability has to be exactly like somebody else that they know. Like there's a lot of comparisons. It's weird to me because I'm like, we're all individual.
Right.
And I have always been someone that I didn't know I had abilities for the longest time. I just thought it was like, oh, well, you're a human. That's just part of what it is. And then people will be like, no. and we talk about that. So those are kind of things that we've discussed in that interview too. So yeah, it's fun. I've got other topics I want to talk about that I've got to get out, but I did a lot of networking a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, that's where we saw you.
Yeah, different aspects. So yeah.
I find the aura readings really interesting. I was at a recent event that was at Royal Scott, and it was a healing event. It was actually organized by our friend Allie Phillips, who's been on the show before. But there was a woman there, or somebody there, taking aura pictures. And I don't know if it was the same one person you mentioned or not, but my daughter had hers taken, and it was funny because in the booth or whatever, and they have on the table, they have it all laid out where like what the different colors mean, and examples of people's auras and things like that. And my daughter's boyfriend and we had a little bet on what we thought her colors were going to be. And I won because I'm her mom and I know her, haha. But it was purple and orange, just like I thought it was going to be. And but that was really cool. And then they told you like what it means, and everybody's pictures were different. And some people had lots of colors, some people just had one major color, and then what all that means. But that's really fascinating. I thought that was cool.
And that's actually, we discussed that in the episode too, because Dawn has had people who have brought in photos of their auras, from one of those machines, and how it actually, she doesn't know about that till after the end. And then they show it, and it's the same thing as what she's actually physically seeing.
Sure.
And one of the things that we really wanted to bring to attention with the colors, Dawn's like, I don't follow what they say in the books because it's what the color represents to me. And that is actually something that I'm learning too, because I see life in colors, but I also see like it in scenes. And I go into great detail about how for years, Dawn's not the only person who's told me this, but for years I needed to like figure out what the colors mean to me, because I can do readings too. But I haven't really been focusing on that. I mean, I see things when I'm doing massage, and I'm empathic and hear things, see things, and all that stuff during that. But I've actually started to explore actually doing readings for people. And I'm not seeing auras yet, because I can't say that I can't see them, because I've been told I'm blocking them. So I guess that's the thing. But I see things in scenes, like it's a scene, and then it's the colors in the scene, and what they mean to me. So that's always interesting, because everybody's perspective is different, so that's cool.
Mm-hmm. What are some other topics that you have coming up on your show?
I'm going to be getting, there is a whole thing that I didn't even realize with it being spring. I'm a plant addict also, being a horticulturist too. I have many interests. But being a horticulturist, loving spring, I didn't even realize until like a month or so ago that like the local libraries have a whole seed saving program, and that you can get free seeds if you want. And they're different types, depending on what you get and who's got what. But some of them are flowers, some of them are herbs, some of them are annuals that you can plant however, and they'll teach you how to save your seeds, how to grow the plants. And there's even a program for statewide. But then I have learned that in 48 states, there's like 660 seeds libraries that they call them, that are helping people learn how to save their own seeds, how to grow things, how to share it. And since we have like a food scarcity in this country, I'm always trying to figure out new ways to help people learn, because there's so many people that may not have access to food. Like I was just on a different podcast. I was interviewed a couple weeks ago, and it's local here in Lansing too, the Rise Above podcast. And David and I were talking about it, and he was like, well, food's easy to get, as an American. I was like, wait, it's not necessarily. I said,
right.
we're just lucky, and maybe take it for granted that we happen to live around the biggest land grant college in the world, and their emphasis is in agriculture. So we get opportunities, I feel like, here in the Lansing area that other places might not. And there's still a lot of people that don't even know how to grow food or where it comes from, even though they live this close to MSU. So I'm always teaching as much as I can.
Right.
So Jenni, who is somebody that you are really, really trying to get as a guest? What topic? Is there a speaker? But who do you want to have as a guest that you haven't had yet? What topic?
Well, since this is all like new and interesting to me, because I'm like interested in so many different topics, I do have different people I've met throughout different networking and different classes I've taken, that I would really like to interview one of the teachers that I've had for anatomy and some stuff. That would be very good. I need to get with him. I would like to talk to a couple of different local people around here that have different abilities, because that's another thing with having abilities with your thought process. It's not just if you can read tarot or if you can do a reading. People have different experiences and different training that, you don't even know it's out there. Like, I would like to have a conversation with someone about having a journey, like a drumming journey, because I've learned a lot about myself through that. I would like to have conversations with people that have like I have a friend that I met through a class that we've never met in person, but we met through a class that was an online class, that she lives in New York, but she's from Jamaica. And I would really like to get some of her experiences on here. I would like to have, I would actually like to talk to a sex therapist and talk about some things that I don't even know what, because there's so many aspects of that.
We don't know what we don't know.
Right, exactly. We don't know what we don't know.
Right.
Is that a thing? Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of different topics I want to get into. It's just time and finding the people, because I do enjoy having, finding out like little nits and nuggets of like, oh, did you know this? And I may not have a specialist for that, but just something, like the seed saving stuff and the seed libraries. I didn't really realize that the libraries in Michigan had started that, and giving out like different seasonings, flavors for you to try monthly and that kind of stuff. I didn't know that until like a couple months ago. And I was like, well, this is cool. People need to know this. So
If somebody has a great story or a great topic, how do they reach out to you to see if they're a great guest for your show?
Well, they can contact the Naughty Mystic at gmail.com, the email, or the naughtymystic.com, because there's ways to contact either way. And then, yeah, if they're interested and if it works, then that would be great. I'm still in looking right now to do interviews that aren't local, like trying to get some kind of maybe even StreamYard. I'm not even sure. But I'm still looking to find stuff for people who are long distance, you know.
Right. So you're not necessarily just the Lansing area. Gotcha.
Yeah. So I'm excited about that too. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you're listening to the show and you hear that and you think you'd like, you fit the bill or think you've got an interesting story or topic to talk to Jenni, and really, as far as the Naughty Mystic goes, there's no topic that's out of range of discussion. So, so she talks about all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
And so get a hold of her, and we will have the links in our show notes as well to get a hold of her for sure. So I want to talk about podcasting in general for a second, Jenni, because I know that you started, took a break, you're back up again and running. And, I produce podcasts for clients and we do this show, and podcasting is changing, and what do you find is like the most difficult with podcasting?
All the tech stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Because it's out of my total comfort zone. So So I have to ask people all the time, and then they say stuff, and I'm like, okay, I have no idea what you're talking about. You know what I mean? I have a couple of friends who are techie, and the wife always says, you got to get a hold of my husband because he keeps up with that way more than I do. So then, I'll look for hours, literally like upset because I can't figure out what I'm supposed to be doing something, especially at the beginning. At the beginning, it was horrible. I was like, I don't even know the word. It's a whole language I don't understand. So, and I call him and like within 10 minutes, 15, if he doesn't know, anything about it. And then he's like, oh, you need to look in this, this, and this. And then I'll like, look at that. And then I'll go, oh yeah, that's awesome. Or I'll be like, okay, that is sort of what I think I'm supposed to be doing, but I need something like that. Right. But when you don't have a language, like you said, when you know, but when you don't, you don't. So it's like, all, that would be my hardest, I would say, for me personally.
Yeah. And there's go ahead, Lisa.
Oh, I was going to say, it's so funny because I am delayed. I'm freezing. My technology today and in several episodes has failed me. And we keep persevering.
Yeah, I know well, the one cool thing I think you touched on this before, Lisa, was that we record every Wednesday at 11, and I'm usually at home because I have a home office, but Elisa is out and about. She's doing so many things. She's at the chamber, she's here, sometimes she's in her car, and it's great because she can kind of record from wherever. And it almost seems like when she's in the office, it's like she has the most difficulty. Well, like from her car, it sounds great. So you just never know. But that is kind of the cool thing about it, is that you have the versatility with that. One of the things that I don't want to get too much in the weeds just on this podcast, but one of the things I've been looking into is that YouTube has its own podcast platform now. And so I'm looking at transferring things from the general YouTube stream to the podcasting platform, which is interesting. Yeah. And then, there's the whole thing around it about having sponsors, and people and advertising and things like that on your show, which is always what everybody is attaining to achieve, because that helps you pay for your show.
Right.
So, and then, but it's like you have to get the followers and the downloads and all that to then, say, oh, hey, it's worth advertising on our show for. So you've got to be up and running for a while. And so it's there's a lot to it.
It's more a balance. It's totally a balance thing. So it's
more than just like, hey, I've got a really cool thing to say and I want to tell the world. That's awesome. But there's all this back end stuff that's hard. And there's different ways to go about it. I mean, you can pay people to help you. You can do it on your own, like you're doing, that kind of stuff. And so it's a lot out there. Yeah.
Well, and that is something that I will say to anyone who's thinking about it, especially for someone who is not tech savvy and is putting all the money into it herself, which is,
time, a lot of time.
It's a lot of time. It's a lot of energy. And at this point, it literally is just me having a passion project that I'm totally sponsoring, that I'm not getting any money back in any way. And I'm okay with that because there's stuff that I need to say. I will figure out the ads and how to get sponsorship, and that will be the next thing. I just can't, for me, I don't like using the word can't, but I'm not in a position right now to add that to, like, how do I figure that out?
Well, right. And you've got to be up and running for a while for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's okay. And I also, I've had some people reach out and ask some questions about, being part of their network or whatever. And I don't know what that all entails, but I don't want to be censored anyway.
Sure.
What I want to talk about and what I want to say. So that is also another thing that I have to, be aware of, because that's just why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of spam out there, just like everything else. I mean, I get, because our show, Ventures in Business show, has become quite popular. We have a lot of downloads now. I'll just get random people saying, "Oh, I can help you make your podcast better," or "You should be on this platform," or "Hey, have you thought about this?" And most of it, because our podcast is local, it's the 517 Lansing area and that kind of thing. Most of it is just irrelevant because it, or we have people that'll say, I have a great guest for your show and his name is such and such. And he's like some person from, I don't know, California or whatever. And we're like, no, thanks. But it's so it makes me also see that they don't really know anything about the show. They didn't read it. Right. So,
well, and that's the beauty of our show. We started it, like you said, as a passion project and to give back to the community, and having you come and talk about what you're doing and all the other guests. That helps build our community and helps other business owners do business with each other. And so, with where you're going with your podcast and just taking it, the sky's the limit, the censorship, the audience, we all appeal to different people.
Absolutely.
But I wanted to ask you a question about your podcast, though, is what was your most listened to episode? I know you're back into season 2, but what was one of your episodes that was most popular?
Okay, so where I set up, where I see the stuff is only through Spotify, so I don't know all the other things, because I know there's a lot of, but the only information I know so far has been like the intro episode and either the pelvic floor one, or it could have been Dawn's last one. No, those so far, but I don't know, because the interesting thing with where I hook up my stuff up, my platform that I hook it up with, it will tell you like all the countries and all the cities in the states of where the information is going. But it won't tell you like audience.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? And the information that it does say, it will only say if it's Spotify related, because like since I've been on you guys, the only platform that I'm aware of that I'm not technically on is Apple. And that has been a beautiful experience with Apple. So, but like I'm on Audible, I'm on Amazon Music now. Like I'm on all these other ones, because when I was here last time, I was just on not that it was just, but Spotify, Google Podcast, and Stitcher, I think were the only 3 I was on at that point. And now Audible, that whole Amazon thing, I'm on that, and I tried multiple times with Apple to try to figure out how to get on there. And I just keep getting interesting experiences.
I love how you phrase that. So what are you looking forward to with your podcast in the rest of 2023 and beyond? What are you looking forward to the most?
I love it when I get feedback, because of course, I don't know everybody who's listening to it, but it's interesting because I've had, I'll tell people out there, I've been to different parts of the state to do like craft events, and I'll bring the podcast information so people know. And I'll bring out my Juice Plus stuff. So it's all at the same table. So I'm like telling people, yeah, here's my fusion glass. And yes, I do a podcast. And one woman at the last event that I did go to, it was a different part of the state. And she's like, okay, so what is taboo? And I listed like all the things I've talked about already. She goes, I don't consider any of that taboo. I said, me either, but somebody does.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
And I like it that people that I don't expect to ever listen. I mean, because I know I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea, like you just said, and that's okay, because that's okay. Like, you don't have to. You may not like that I laughed through the whole thing. You might not like that the fact that I have very deep, intense topics that make people really uncomfortable, and they're like, why, are you doing that? And I have other people who are like, I think you're just being so vulnerable. So, you never know.
Yep.
You never know. So
you're definitely working both sides of my brain with your deep topics and your lighthearted laughter and joy. You're exercising me, Jenny.
Well, Lisa, that's good. That's really what I mean. The whole point of my podcast, because in the last time that I was here, you guys had asked me like, what was the best piece of advice for, doing the podcast. And I said, because I still say it, and I say this every single time, when the first moment that I said, okay, I am going to think about doing a podcast, I was told to talk to Amy. Like, I didn't know who Amy was. And this was like, I don't know, 3 years ago now. I feel like it's been 3 years now. And so I had no idea who she was. I didn't understand anything about social media. Well, that I still don't get, but that's a whole nother story.
Neither do we. Nobody knows.
It's
up in the air.
I'm still trying to understand Instagram and like whatever. So whatever. But Amy said, yeah, let's do a consultation. We'll do a Zoom. And because that was at the time when you're not supposed to be like in people's faces or whatever in person. And the takeaway, and we talked, I know it was an hour, but I could have sworn it was longer than that. And I had a bunch of notes. And the one thing she said to me, and I say this to everybody, and it was the most powerful thing that she ever said, was, whatever you decide to do on your podcast, do it because you're passionate about it and that you love it, and that you can talk about it forever. And I was like, and she's like, you can't be bored about it. You can't because there's so many people out there that will start this and then realize how difficult it is, how much time it consists, money, whatever, because you have to be really passionate about it. And I literally put the brakes on for a whole year because of it. Almost a year and a half.
Well, but you still think it was good advice, so that's good.
No, it was best because the reason why I'm saying it was the best advice is because you were so, especially with what I have learned since then, you were so correct on that. Because on so many levels though, because first of all, when I first was going to start the Naughty Mystic, it was all going to be just sex and astrology. And I was like, when you said that to me, I was like, okay, but I'm also a horticulturist and I love to travel and I love being creative. So yeah, you can get the creativity in there, but how are you going to get the gardening in there other than talking about earth signs and gardening and I like, freaky sex. So when are we going to talk about that? And how is that going to get pulled in? I can't just talk about it during Scorpio season. I mean, there's other shit in here.
More than just doing it in the garden.
I mean, next Saturday, I don't know when this is going to air, but next Saturday is naked. First Saturday of the month of May is always naked gardening.
It would be too cold for that. They should move that to June.
But I mean, those are that literally start. I mean, my mind was blown away, Amy, by that conversation. And it really made me like for months, like go, okay, I'm hearing what she's saying. So how are you going to evolve this? So then that's when it was like, okay, we got to talk about my curiosity and we got to talk about my taboo stuff because, then, and that's how all, the minute people hear about the Naughty Mystic, especially people who know me that have never listened to the podcast, they're like, ooh. And I was like, yeah, we haven't really done much ooh things yet, at least in my opinion. We haven't done anything kinky, but the word kinky is just a word to me. It's not, it's what
objective.
He's going to be like, oh my God, she's been talking about vaginas and we're got.
No, I'm still about the naked gardening. I'm like, who makes this stuff up? I don't understand.
About poison ivy. That would be my biggest
exactly. Yeah, and what's so funny is because Lisa, this is just for you. I have had so many people across the country that know me, my friends, they have sent me diagrams about this. They have sent me little memes about like naked people with plants in front of them. It is great. I'm like, that's right, people. That's right.
Well, and Jenny, the thing, you're so funny because people don't know me like, I mean, we have different facades, personal lives and professional lives and stuff. And obviously this isn't the stuff that I cover in my business model, and that's okay.
Right.
But you've got questions and you're asking things that other people want to know the answers to but won't ask, right? And literally just last week I was facilitating a women's group and we were doing Tell Me Something Good, and somebody started their pelvic floor therapy and was just recommending to everybody in the room that they do it. So, and this was a group of executive women, business owners, CEOs. So you just don't ever know. And to be able to provide that information, that insight, that knowledge, raising the questions, you're providing a service to the community and to people that won't ask on their own.
Yes. Right. Well, and the pelvic floor question alone was actually one of my massage clients who has had a lot, who never had children, who is older. And she has been so happy that, I was investigating it for myself, not just for the podcast, but she's like, we do not talk about this as women. We just don't. And I was doing my own little survey. And I even say that in the podcast. I was doing my own survey with women that I knew. And you get 3 answers. 1, yes, I know what that is. No, I have no idea what you're talking about. And 3, basically you got to do Kegels. And I was like, that's not, that's part of it, but that's just such a small little. And so, and we never talk about it as men, for men. And that is a whole separate, and I would like to get a male specialist on too, to talk about it. Yeah, because it's a human experience. It's not one sex or the other. It's the entire, it's our body. So yes. So yes.
Well, Jenny, this has been always an adventure with you. Always fun, never knowing what's going to come, and that's okay. I love it. And I'm excited to see you out networking in the community again. That was really good to see you. And I'm glad that you came back as a guest on our show just to update us with what's going on and where you're at. Because like you said, you've got the massage therapy. We kind of had all different types of topics, but really focusing on your podcast, getting listeners to tune in and learn, right? Learn, laugh, and just experience.
And naked garden.
And naked gardening. Hey,
Please don't send your photos to Adventures in Business. Please don't.
Oh, thank you so much for coming back on, Jenny. It's always good to talk to you, and I'm sure I will see you soon out and about.
Absolutely.
All right. And to our listeners, thank you so much for coming on this wild adventure with us today. We appreciate you listening and tuning in. We release episodes every Wednesday. You can find them at zdiamedia.com or at Lisa Fisher Associates. And if you want to be a guest on our podcast, you can sign up as well at zdiamedia.com. We hope you have a great day. Go out and, as always, make it an adventure.